My name is Steve. I'm the Java Game Man. In this session, we're going to continue off on the last session where we were just basically calculating numbers and learning how variables work. Since I didn't want to spend too much time on making videos too long, I decided to extend this series into showing you how to double, and maybe we can get the floats in this one. Since we've already went over the basics, we're kind of just move right into it. So what we basically know, and just to re-highlight, int is an integer. And what this basically means, it's a number without decimals. What we're going to be learning in this series is double. And that is the opposite. Number with decimals. So it's like your fractions. So, really simple. We just go back here and all we're going to be doing is changing these ints to double. We'll change the first one to maybe we'll use the second one and float or something. Anyways, we'll change these to doubles, and so this is going to basically take a number of 6 multiplied by 3. It's not going to show you anything right now. I'm going to do this for demonstration purposes to show you. It's going to be the exact same numbers, except the difference you can see is this little 0.0 at the end. So that's the decimal of the number. So how do we get the decimals? We basically add the decimal point and the number that we want to multiply as a decimal. Now it'll basically pick up decimal numbers. So now it's basically multiplying fractions, so to speak. Our computers are pretty smart. You know, you can do a lot of things with them. So these, you can do these the same thing too. Just change them to doubles. And you'll see the results right here at the bottom of the screen, 23.8 and 5.35. So that's what basically doubles. You can also, you notice over here, you can do the same thing. You can multiply them and everything. You can add them, whatever you decide to do. Another thing I want to show you, which I forgot to mention in the first videos, is you can also do direct numbers. I don't know what the exact word is, but you can replace this number with just a regular number. For example, I could replace this with, let's see, number currently is 6.8, and we could change it to, I'm trying to think of a number here, 3.6, for example. Now it's going to override the original result of 10.3 and use 3.6 and multiply it actually by 3.5. So it's basically taking that and recalculating it, because this right here is overriding this, since this no longer exists down here. So it's always looking down here to see what your variables are that are matching up here, or otherwise you're just using real-time numbers, and you'll see the result will change. See, now it's 7.1. You do the same thing to this. You can just override it with a different number, and it'll change the result again, which is nothing like the original number. Oh, look at that. Basically a long number, I believe it is. Long is another thing you could do too. You make long numbers, but you'll get errors, of course. So we won't go into log numbers. I probably have to do something. Yeah, it wants me to cast it and everything because it's not recognizing it. So we'll leave that alone for now. Next thing I wanted to show you was floats, which are very similar to doubles, except they're larger numbers. Yeah, it's going to give me an error again. Let's see what it says. Change number 1 to double. And it wants me to use a double. I think it's because I got the static in there, so I take the static out. Nope, that's not it. Oh, I might have to teach you something about cast. I didn't want to get too advanced here, but cast is basically a way of overriding it. It's going to basically take this float number and ensure that it's a float number. So if this was originally an integer, it's going to convert this number to the right to this new initialized, variable, or I don't know what the word is, but it's basically changing the way it's being calculated. So at this point, and we'll fix this one too, it's going to want to cast too. It'll just cast it to float. And now it should be a longer number maybe? Yeah. No, it's actually the same. But the floats are longer numbers, so you can actually put bigger numbers in them. And I'm trying to see why it's doing that. Maybe I have to change this. Oh, I think because it's still calculating. Oh, we forgot to change it down here. See, you learned something as I was doing it. Notice it never changed anything I did. So now if we go number 1 plus number 2, we'll see the new floating number, which will probably give me an error, but we'll see. Yep, there's the floating number. And this one. So the floating numbers are very big numbers, basically. Up and change this one. And eventually it'll stick an E in there if it gets too big. Now if you go back and try to change this to a double, I think it'll blow up. And it actually still works. Like, oh, because I'm already cast into a float, so I just leave that at a double. Yeah, I guess it kind of works the same. But floats are very large numbers, just so you wanted to know. You can do the same thing with these down here. Change these to floats. You can use the same math on them, it's no different. Of course, we're going to need to cast them again. Cast the float. Interesting they didn't want this one to cast. Let's see if I change this to a higher number. I think it's because it's a decimal. That's what it is. If you set this as an integer, it's not going to mess with it. Doesn't need, but as soon as you do this, it needs to cast it, basically. So, cast it, and let's just calculate it. So now you've got a good idea of how floats and, how doubles and floats work in this example. You can continue to play with this series. I didn't want to go into a lot more examples. If you wanted to, you could add more variables in here. It's totally up to you. You can mix them up. You can add doubles. There's also throwing integers in here. Number 5. So the computer really doesn't have a limitation of how many variables. There might be a limitation, but I've never really reached it. Usually it's pretty wide open, pretty generous on how many variables you can include in it. I'm going to put another line in here and just do another system out. And number 5 times number 6. So we're doing kind of the same thing we did earlier, except the only thing we're doing is we're changing the math in it. I wonder why it just gave me a 0. Oh, you remember the original rule? Default set by 0, so it's trying to multiply 0 by 0. So basically, I never changed anything. Now it'll work. And 42. So that's basically all I wanted to show you. Actually, there was one more thing I wanted to show you. To try to eliminate all these repetitive print lines, you can go in here. I believe it's a /n. Did I do that right? Maybe I did it backward or something. No, actually, I think it's in the code. I think you have to do it inside the code or something. I'm trying to remember. It's inside the code. Let me see if that's it. Nope. That's just going to set it as. I always thought it was /n. Maybe I got the slash backward. I feel like I did have a Google moment or something. I always thought it was /n. What I was trying to do is basically move it to another line. And at the moment I'm having a freeze here. So I don't. Guess we're going to skip over that so I don't. Actually, I could just pause my video here for a moment so I don't look like a. 1 second. Okay, guys, actually what I found out for the video here is you actually have to include it in quotes. I always thought you couldn't do it outside, but it wasn't able to read it. So it has to read it inside a quote. I think that's the escape character is how it sees it. So anyways, if you do the /line just like that, it'll understand it. So let's just take that and take this one out. We'll include that on the end of there. Whoops, what did I do? Plus. Do the same thing. I don't know why it's doing that. Oh, I forgot my little slash at the end. So you also learned something about strings, but we'll go into the next video and I'll talk about strings. This video is going to be too long, but wanted to show this to you. That's good enough. Too many pluses in there. Okay, so we'll run that and it'll do the same thing. It basically just prints the lines in the center there. And it saves you some extra lines. You don't have to put in all those extra codes. So just a way to kind of minimize your code. So I hope this series was helpful and look forward to the next series really soon. Thanks for watching.